Yeah.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Trendy Indy. You could be in your world, but you're here with me and I appreciate that. I'm Jerry Gordon, your local real estate expert, and today I am joined with Katie Pappas with a great organization called AKidAgain, and I'm going to let her tell you about her role in this organization.
Well, thank you so much for having me join the conversation today. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
AKidAgain provides adventures for families raising kids with a life-threatening condition. So our mission is really unique because not only are these adventures for the sick kiddo, but they're also for the siblings. If you think about what a child goes through when their sibling is in the hospital all the time, they might feel forgotten and left out. And so AKidAgain's mission really is to wrap their arms around the entire family, but also invite all of our enrolled families out to adventures. So we might take 4, 5, 1,000 people to an adventure, whether it's a sporting event or a holiday party, with the goal in mind of just letting them connect with each other and provide, a community of support that they can lean on in times of isolation. The last cool thing about our mission is that we do adventures on an ongoing basis. So we're not just doing one experience a year, we're doing 6 or 8 or 10 experiences or adventures every year. So these families always have something fun to anticipate.
That's awesome. I never even thought about the sibling side, so that's great that you're encompassing the whole family.
Absolutely.
So how did you get involved, and tell me a little bit about your background then.
Yeah, so my background is in nonprofit management. I studied here at IUPUI and kind of dove right into the nonprofit space. Prior to coming to AKidAgain, I worked for a really big nonprofit as their director of development and kind of just wanted to change. I'd been there 6 years and 7 galas is what I say, and had a lot of fun. I learned a ton, but I just wanted to kind of go outside my comfort zone and happened to stumble across AKidAgain and the mission and really fell in love with what we were doing and what they were trying to do here, which was build something from scratch. This was a new chapter outside of Ohio, and it was kind of the test market for how the organization was going to expand and grow. And here we are 5 years later. And so it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about the history of AKidAgain and if there was any certain milestones that you've seen or that you worth mentioning.
Yeah. So like I said, AKidAgain was started in Ohio almost 30 years ago now. Wow. And really has a strong presence and great brand awareness in that state. But if you think about the kids that we're serving, they travel a lot for their medical care. So some Indiana families were always going to Ohio and they were hearing about AKidAgain. And they would come back here to Riley or Peyton Manning Children's Hospital and say, is AKidAgain here? Why isn't it here in my backyard?
Interesting.
And so kind of the stars aligned. We had a national board that was ready to take that leap of faith. But we also had some volunteers here locally that had known about the organization and really wanted to help us grow here. And so that's how we started, like I said, 5 years ago.
In the Indiana chapter.
In the Indiana chapter, yep. So the organization as a whole has been around for 30 years, based out of Ohio. Indiana was next along that pathway of growth. So we've been here 5 years. Now we have chapters in Michigan and the Carolinas as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool. Now, switching a little bit to the families, and if they want to get involved, can you talk a little bit about that process?
Sure. Qualification for enrollment. Very simple. So all a family has to do, if you have a child under 20 with a life-threatening condition, you can go on our website and enroll at AKidAgain.org. And there's an enrollment button there. It's super simple. So, there's no other qualification other than being under 20 and have a life-threatening condition.
What about conditions?
Yep. So that list is long and growing. And it's intentional because we want to be able to serve as many families as possible. We don't just want to enroll cancer kiddos or kiddos with type 1 diabetes, both of which qualify.
Sure.
But what about those kids with rare conditions or, just conditions that we might not think about all the time? So a lot of times people ask me what qualifies or what doesn't qualify. That's hard to say because the qualification list continues to grow. The only thing we do say is that a child with just a diagnosis of autism at this point doesn't qualify for our program.
Okay.
But a lot of times those kiddos might have additional diagnoses that as a whole then qualify them. So we always just encourage families to go online and just enroll and try. We have a medical advisory committee that reviews those enrollments. And so, if there's something that they have a question on, they'll reach out, but always just encourage a family to try and enroll.
Sounds like a pretty simple process.
Absolutely.
And that's why you guys have kind of tried to make it very fluid.
Absolutely. If you think about the things that these families are dealing with, not only hospital visits, procedures, the sense and feeling of isolation, we want to make enrollment in our program easy and simple and fun, because that's what we're about.
You spoke about the adventures.
Yeah.
In your opinion, what are some of the adventures that you've seen, or what are some of your favorite adventures that you've seen?
That's a great question. So my favorite adventure, there are actually a couple of them. I love our Kings Island adventure,
Okay.
Mostly because that's a collaboration among multiple chapters. So 2 of our chapters in Ohio and Indiana, last year, for example, we took 10,000 people to Kings Island on one day. We were like the massive, yeah. It's wild to see, but what's magical is when a family comes to an adventure like that, they walk in and they aren't the only one. They see another kid that looks like them. They see another family pulling a wagon with medical equipment that they have to bring everywhere they go. One of my favorite stories from the adventure, the Kings Island adventure last year, is a mom sent a note afterwards and said, my daughter, who's 15 years old, she's bald, she's got cancer, and she's in a wheelchair. And she was so nervous to come to Kings Island because it's a big space and it's intimidating. But she said when we walked through the gates at Kings Island, she saw her daughter visibly take a deep breath. Because as she looked out, there were 2 or 3 other kids that looked just like her. And then mom went on to say the rest of the day, she didn't take a single family picture. But it was okay because they were all having fun and making a memory together. And that's what it's about. And that's why we do what we do, is those memories.
I got to ask, you being a mom, does this play a large part in what you do?
Absolutely. There's, so many times I look at my kiddos and think how blessed I am. But what a privilege it is to work with these families and serve the families that we have enrolled. Because for some of them, they just don't get the opportunity to make as many memories as they should. And so it's a huge privilege, and we're so excited every day to come to the office and work hard for these families.
It's a big why of like what you get out of the bed in the morning.
Absolutely. Yep.
So when people think about supporting a kid again, I'm sure donations obviously come to mind, but is there anything else that someone can do?
Oh, absolutely. We have all kinds of opportunities to get involved.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. We're a small staff of 3, so we always need all kinds of support, whether it's donations, as you said, right? Because adventures are not cheap. They cost money. But volunteering is huge. We need an army of volunteers to get engaged and involved, whether it's helping create the adventures, volunteering on our board, coming out to the adventures and helping families just have fun. If you think about a family that has all kinds of medical equipment, or they have multiple kids they're trying to get from point A to point B, this, a volunteer helping them get a drink or carry their plate of food, that means the world.
Goes a long way.
Goes a long way. So we need people just to come out and have fun at adventures with us.
Yeah.
We've got a new women's council we formed. So we're looking for ladies and women who just want to leverage their network and have fun and be social to get involved with us. So all kinds of opportunities.
You heard it. So Kid Again's been around for 30 years, Indiana chapter for 5.
Yep. How
has the support from the community been?
Oh my gosh, we couldn't be more lucky in this community. You know this. It's a small, big town, or big, small town, whatever they say. When we first started this chapter, I cannot say more and be more thankful to the Pacers, the Colts, the Indianapolis Indians, the entire sporting community wrapped their arms around us and invited us out and invited our families out to participate. The corporate community has said, you know what, we want our employees to get engaged and involved and support you. It's a wonderful city. It's one of the reasons why.
I'm biased. It's my favorite.
Yep. It's one of the reasons why, the organization did decide to expand here.
Right.
The people are amazing. It's just been so much fun, truly, to have, although intimidating at first, here's a blank slate. Try to grow and create something here. But 5 years later, couldn't be more excited for what we have done, but what we are going to do.
It sounds like you just named off some huge sponsors, and I'm assuming that as you've grown, you've continued to grow, get sponsors.
Absolutely, yeah. From some of the biggest companies in town, Ice Miller, and some of the big ones on the circle, but even the small companies too. There are so many opportunities just to get your employees involved and engaged in the community.
Yeah, like you were saying, every little bit helps and goes a long way.
Yep. There's always someone, you probably know someone in your network that would qualify for our program. We think there are at least 10,000 families just in Indiana that would qualify for what we do. We have about 1,000 of them enrolled at this point. So we have a lot of work to do.
All right, Katie. So I know you personally. You've got a great heart. You have no quit. In your personal opinion, what is the best part of your job or the organization?
Truly, there are so many good parts
of
my job. It's hard to pick one. Not just working with the volunteers and the people in the corporate community, but truly at the end of the day, the heart of what we do is the families. These families are amazing. I don't know sometimes how some of them get out of their house. It's just the things they go through every day, the struggles, the constant worry, not only from a medical standpoint, but a financial standpoint. They are the heart of why we do what we do. And like I said earlier, just so privileged and blessed to be able to work for them so that they can create a memory together. You and I look forward to birthdays and parties and vacations. For some of them, that's just not an option. And so to be able to take them to a sporting event or a holiday party or the children's museum and see the smile on their faces and know that they are making a memory together, that's why we do what we do.
I'm sure it's very humbling.
Absolutely.
So if someone wants to donate, volunteer, how does one find about A Kid Again?
Yeah, so super simple. Hop online, go to AKidAgain.org. We're also on all social media platforms too. So just highly encourage, check us out online, AKidAgain.org, and
pretty
get
simple
involved
website.
Somehow. Yep.
Okay. Now going into a section that I have is called Wins and Wines. If there was one thing that when starting, 5 years ago, when starting this chapter, and now to see where it's grown and since you've been here, is there anything that you could say that whether it be landing a sponsor or an adventure for a family or taking on a family, anything like that you consider to be a big win?
Huge wins. We've had so many wins over the past 5 years. But when I look back and think about just the brand awareness that we've created in the community, when we have these kinds of conversations, people understand what we do and it all kind of clicks. So I think our biggest win truly has been the people that we have brought into the community, into the A Kid Again family, if you will, whether it is an enrolled family, a sponsor, a volunteer. I always get so kind of re-energized after I have a board meeting or a committee meeting because we're working and collaborating with people who care about their community. They care about the people that are their neighbors. And so just, so excited to continue growing that and bringing more people into the family.
Well, just like you said, I mean, you just had a venture where you had 10,000 families at Kings Island. I mean, that's bringing, and that's in multiple states, multiple different organizations. So, like you said, I'm sure at the end of the day, at the end of a board meeting, you're re-energized, ready to tackle it and overcome any objections.
Absolutely.
Now, speaking of objections, on the flip side of that, on the wine part, is there anything that's come to mind that you've maybe gone home to your husband, Andrew, and said, like, hey, I don't know if this is kind of what I want to be doing, kind of wine, if you will. I know you don't wine, but is there anything that kind of comes to mind like that?
Yeah, I think the hardest part about this job, the wine part, really is seeing what the families go through. Just yesterday, quite honestly, I did a speaking engagement on the south side of town, and I happened to check my email right before I walked in the meeting, and I had a mom send me a note that said, you know what, we were so grateful and thankful and had so much fun at the holiday adventure. My kids had fun, but unfortunately, I have to share that my daughter passed away recently, and so we're so thankful for what you do. I mean, she was so appreciative of what we did in the midst of what I'm sure is unbearable pain. That's hard. Yeah. That when you hear those stories and you have those families sharing that unfortunate, tragic news, that's a whine. That's a hard thing. And especially, as you mentioned, being a parent, looking at your kids every evening when you go home and kind of that what if in the back of your mind kind of plays in there and gets me a little worked up sometimes. Yeah. And so I would be lying if I didn't say there are many nights when I get those messages that I don't go home and cry. I mean, quite honestly, it's a hard job.
I'm sure that you take a little bit of solace knowing that they come to you and that they can confide in you.
Yep.
And that you've built such a rapport that you've had a large impact on their life.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what you truly have to lean on, right? Is knowing that this family, for example, was able to come to the holiday party and they had that memory together. Absolutely. I mean, that's why we do what we do. Let's help them have fun and take a time out from illness and just take a break and know that someone else is thinking about them and that they're not alone in this, for some of them, a lifelong medical journey.
Wow. Well, if you want to know more about whether it be donating, volunteering, tag, comment, ask Katie. This is just such a truly blessing of an organization, and I appreciate your time and being here with me today. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks.